It is now my great honor to introduce this year's commencement speaker. Miguel Ángel Amórtegui is an international photographer, writer, filmmaker, and visual storyteller. Throughout his 20-year career, he has continuously strived to give the unrepresented, the marginalized, and the misunderstood a voice and a place in our society. Originally from Colombia, Miguel has worked with communities across the world, using photography and film as a tool to drive awareness and social change. He has worked with communities affected by war, poverty, and sexual violence, with child soldiers, orphan, gang members, and refugees. He has worked in cities and rural communities across South America, Europe, and Africa. He is the author of the book Voices of the Jungle, which documents his time spent in refugee camp infamously known as the Jungle in Calais, northern France. Miguel initially went to the jungle to deliver a series of participatory photography projects to help the refugees process their experiences and the difficulties they faced in a camp day by day. He ended up staying there for an extended time and became both resident photographer and a much-needed friend and confidant for many of the inhabitants. As the title of the book suggests, its purpose is to share an intimate portrait of the lives, memories, hopes, and dignity of the people that were stranded there. The photos he took in the refugee camp of Calais served as a basis for a photo exhibit which accompanied the critically acclaimed play The Jungle by Joe Robertson and Joe Murphy, which was performed to sold-out audiences last winter at St. Anne Warehouse in Brooklyn. As with all these projects, Miguel focuses on the humanity and the hope of the people that have been isolated or ignored, trying to empower them, creating advocacy, and giving a wider exposure to the issues that surround them. While working in the harshest and often the bleakest of places, one thing that is ever present in Miguel's work is an unfaltering dignity that immerses his subjects. Rather than focusing on the continuing and exploitative narrative of horror and drama, Miguel chooses to amplify humanity to honor them. His work seeks to inspire, invite empathy, and motivate people to create a better future. As such, the Students' Senior Committee and myself agreed that few people could better embody the mission of UNIS and the values of the UN Charter on which it rests. I am delighted that he has accepted the invitation of the students and has flown from London to be here with us today in the General Assembly of the United Nations. Please give a warm welcome to Miguel Ángel Amórtegui, who will now address the graduates.
It's a little bit nerve-wracking to be here. Okay. Hello and good afternoon. Firstly, I would like to thank Dr. Brenner, Executive Director of UNIS, Undersecretary General Poller, Chair of the Board of Trustees, the trustees, and the class of 2019 for allowing me to share this incredible day with you all. And to Antoine Delattre for the most gracious and welcome of the introductions. Thank you. I'm very honored and pleased to speak to you in this grand occasion. There are many schools of learning in the state of New York, but there is only one UNIS, that's for sure. Excellencies, trustees, ladies and gentlemen, let's congratulate the best, the most dedicated, the most compassionate, the most united, and the most likely to succeed UNIS class ever, the class of 2019. Today is your day, but you know better than anyone that you didn't achieve this alone. So let's think about the people that stood by you through the years, the ones that supported you, channeled you, and inspired you, the ones that are here with you today in person or in spirit. So let's give a big round of applause to all these people. Okay, here's where the story starts. Today, one of the many legends that surround me when I was growing up used to say that children were like precious arrows, and parents and teachers were like magic bows with only one job: to stretch their arms as wide as they could endure, to shoot these arrows to places that they could reach only in their most adventure of their dreams. And looking at this room today, I can see how much wisdom those words really have. This is without a doubt one of the most incredible places to celebrate your graduation. For me, it's a privilege to stand here with you in one of the most iconic and important buildings, the General Assembly of the United Nations, an organization that constantly has participated in shaping the history of the humankind. In this place, 195 states discuss how to create a better world by acting under certain values. These values are shared closely in the structure of the United Nations International School, a spirit that inspires their students day by day and helps them with their teachings and morals to help to create in the future a world more peaceful, compassionate, and sustainable. The class of 2019 is made of 116 students. That's 48 different countries, 32 languages, and with that, many cultures, beliefs, and traditional knowledge. All of you under one roof, sharing and profiting day by day with respect and love for the cultural difference, standing shoulder to shoulder, ignoring the label that society tends to impose on us from a very young age, and calling yourselves amigos. A very short word indeed, but a word that can only be described precisely by those moments of silence in which, with a simple glance, we know that someone is ready to catch us if we fall. I'm a descendant of an indigenous tribe called the Muiscas from the Central Territory of Colombia. The elder of the tribes used to divide the youngsters into 3 categories according to the abilities they have. First, the warriors and the hunter-gatherers. Second, the medicine man prodigies. And third were the storytellers. I guess by this point you know which one I got. The roles of the storytellers were to learn as much as they could, so when they leave the tribe, they could share the information with other communities, and when they come back, they could help their own kind. Today I'm standing in front of you, and to wish you the best, and with my humble experience of my work, perhaps inspire you to join the people out there that are trying to heal the world. So let's start with the story now. When my grandfather was a little boy, he was sent to a rich house to work as a maid or a servant. He spent most of his time cleaning and cooking, and in his free time, he used to help the man of the house with his work as a photographer. In that time, photography was in black and white. You only have 10 shots. You have to measure very carefully the focal length, the aperture, the lighting conditions, and with a lot of hesitation, click the shutter, and hopefully the photograph was okay. My colleague here is agreed. My grandfather started to go with this man to every photo shoot, and his main job was to color Let's go back. So my grandfather used to go with this man to every photo shoot, and he has to sit down and write down a color description of what was going to appear in the photograph. Then when the picture was developed, he has to color by hand every single detail of the photograph before it was sent to the client. I guess that's why we have such a colorful life after all. My grandfather fell in love with photography, and it became his job through his whole life. He had 5 children, and one day, he gathered all of them by the table. They were teenagers by this point. He gave them a camera each, and he said, I want to teach you photography, but I don't want you to be photographers. I just want you to, if you ever find yourself struggling somewhere in the world, you can always use this little machine to get on your feet again. And little he knew that by saying those words, he was going to change the shape of the whole family, and everybody become to be photographers. All of them start to see their lives passing through the aperture of a lens. Some of them shoot fashion, other weddings, first communions, and then there was my father, a romantic bohemian that decided to capture with his camera the cultural changes of his time, the faces of the invisibles, the faces of the ones that nobody really cared for. I remember when I was a child looking at the projections of his photographs on the wall, looking at all these portraits of children displayed by violence, poverty, and imagining with a fragile mind how their lives were and if they will ever make it. I quickly became passionate about photography too. I memorized most of the work of Sebastián Salgado and many other masters of photojournalism. For me, it was very intriguing to understand why, in so many of these photographs, even in the most deprived situations, the people were trying to smile. It was only after I started my first assignment that I understood the answer. The only thing that can bring a smile to a portrait taken in these desperate situations is the unbreakable dignity that enabled these people to keep fighting day by day, and the immense hope that one day everything possibly will be okay. After many years of portraying the imbalance of our world, I realized that it wasn't enough just to stand out there capturing the misery and the injustice without trying to do something more about it. I couldn't stop feeling like a vulture, feeding from the disgraced circumstances that overwhelmed my subjects. It is true, photojournalism helped to spread information about the things that happen around the world. Without it, we will be completely ignoring it. But at what point do your morals and your values question where you really stand? Where is the line? This was something that stayed with me for a very long time. After a while, I started to work in participatory photography projects with vulnerable communities around the world, teaching them photography in order to give them a voice and a tool to help them to overcome certain traumas, passing them a skill and a way to register the memories of their community. The results with these photographic projects were vast. It was fascinating for me to see how a tool that I've been using for so many years suddenly become to be so powerful in their own hands, and how these communities can use photography to create a voice, to give a voice that is not ignored anymore by so many years. In the Republic of Ghana, one of my students used his photographic skills to prevent accidents happening in the river close to his house. He claims that he saved over 40 lives just with one photograph. In the outskirts of Lima, a whole community united to denounce the difficulties they endure living day by day and produce change. In Namibia, a woman created an internet shop that helped to sell baskets that the elder women weave while they admire the sunsets over the river. In the streets of London, 2 young boys decided to leave at home their knives, their gangs, and started to carry memory cards, flash guns, and cameras. In the northwest region of Togo, a young woman, a victim of a horrible sexual crime that was stigmatized by her community, suddenly became to be their queen bee after she sent a photograph of a parasite that was destroying the crops to a laboratory in the city, saving the production of food for the whole winter. I have so many stories, and I would love to share them all with you, but unfortunately, I don't have enough time. It is because of the love and the constant teachings that these people have offered me on every single one of my assignments that I do this job with so much passion. This is the same reason that made me move to live in a car, sharing shoulder to shoulder with the refugees of the infamous jungle of Calais in the north of France. In there, in the jungle, thousands of people from different backgrounds and cultures settle, sharing one common goal: to arrive to the shores of the United Kingdom and to start a new life. A life that has been denied to them by their own line, by the constant wars, repression, and poverty that dehumanize them. Day by day, I witnessed the arrival of thousands of refugees in this small piece of land located in the coast of France. Week by week, I saw hundreds risking their lives to cross the British Channel in small inflatable boats, jumping onto moving trucks, or walking over the rails of the Eurotunnel, hoping to be fast enough to get out of the way when the train comes. Month by month, I saw many of them transforming into just statistics by the NGOs, registering their deaths. I witnessed the disappearance of hundreds of children that were trafficked in Eastern Europe. I recorded the stories of war and suffering that persecute them and push them to the point of making them walk mile after mile, crossing border after border, with nothing on their shoulders but the fear of the unknown. Through all this time, I was registering the story of the jungle, creating a vivid memory of the people who live there and their struggles. Through all this time, the same question kept appearing through my mind. For how long is it possible to see things happening through a lens, through a TV, or through a mobile phone screen, and don't do anything about it? It was wintertime, and amongst the mud and the fragile plastic tents, a confrontation started between the riot police and some of the refugees. There were rubber bullets flying by, and the tear gas was intoxicating our lungs, making our eyes burn. I was running through the mud between the shelters, fueled by adrenaline, trying to capture with my camera the heat of the moment and perhaps hunting an iconic image. Suddenly, in front of me, a little girl, perhaps no older than 5 years old. She was kneeling in the mud. There was nobody else around her. With one hand, she was trying to cover her tearful eyes, while the other one, she was trying to find a teddy bear that was lost in the dirt. It was a mist all over the place, and she was between the tents, the mud, the rain. She was crying. It was one of the most horrible images I've seen. The perfect photograph. That photograph could have represented for me perhaps recognition in some of the most prestigious photographic magazines in the world. Perhaps even a job in the New York Times. But the fact is that I couldn't do it. I couldn't even contemplate the idea of lifting my camera and framing the shot. Instead, I ran to her and lifted her in my arms and delivered her and her teddy bear to the safest point where they could wash her eyes and find her mother. In that brief moment of time, my humanity came before any type of greed or recognition. My question was finally answered, and even though that image never made it to the sensor of my camera, it stayed with me forever. I realized that it didn't matter how many projects I did, there will be always a constant sense of responsibility to fight against the unjust. In the jungle, I witnessed the construction of a rough Babylon, where anarchy and common sense were the only rules, where 9 different languages and many cultures become the veins of a small city. From them, I learned about the strength of the human spirit, its endurance, and the eternal search for dignity and respect. I learned that our differences and beliefs don't really matter when we are all struggling. I learned that when we stand shoulder to shoulder, everything is possible. Now, I stand before you, and even though I don't know you all one by one, I have total confidence in the strong roots that you have been growing. Thanks to the ethics, the values, and the morals of this school. I know as a fact that sharing day by day among so many cultures and languages has given you a very global and privileged view of the world. Right now, you're at one of the most amazing times in your life where everything is possible, where there are no barriers that can stop your dreams. Never forget those values. Never forget the humanity that characterizes you, your compassion, your spirit. Never forget to tremble with indignation at any injustice, because after all, that's perhaps the biggest hope that we have. I have no doubt that whatever you decide to do in the future, you will take all you learn at UNIS to help to create a better society and to heal our world. There are hundreds of little battles out there, hundreds of good causes that need people like you to stand and for a start to change things. And for the first time in our lives, we can utilize an amazing technology at the tip of our fingers to help us to organize and act. This world belongs now to the young, to the inspired, to the courageous, to the brave that are willing to fight some of the most important battles that we are facing right now. I see in this room a lot of brave hearts armed with enough knowledge and strong values to take on these battles. I feel very proud to be sharing these battles with you as well. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias, Miguel, por estar aquí y por todo lo que haces para que el mundo sea un lugar mejor. Thank you, Miguel, for these truly inspiring and uplifting remarks. I would now